Welcome to the SEO Insider with your host, Seth Price, founder of BluShark, taking you inside the world of legal marketing and all things digital.
Welcome, everybody. We're thrilled to be here today with Mark Benhard, who is with the CMO of Levin Papantonio. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it.
We got to see you down in Miami recently at NTL, and I know that I've gotten to know Levin Pap people extremely well through the MTMP over the years. But tell me a little bit about it. I mean, it sounds like a pretty overwhelming role being the CMO of arguably the top mass tort firm in the country.
Yeah, well, I've only been on the role for 2 years now, and it's definitely been a bit of a learning curve. In as much as I'm not from the legal space, I've worked for 4 or 5 Fortune 500 type companies, global organizations, and had pretty senior roles in communications and marketing realm. But and oftentimes had switched industries from one industry to the next, so there's always a bit of a learning curve there. But really knew very little about the legal space, the mass tort space. Frankly, wasn't familiar with the Levin Papantonio name itself, and of course, very quickly I realized what an amazing, national reputation they have. Started right here in Pensacola Beach, where I'm at right now, in 1955. So we're celebrating our 70th anniversary, and the cases that they have been involved in and continue to be involved in today, it's really remarkable.
As you moved into this space, and it's got a lot of national press, not Levin Pap, but mass torts in general, the aggregation of cases, et cetera. What sort of surprised you is the most as far as, not being familiar with the space and all of a sudden being knee deep in it?
I think the job itself is typically the same, and so, I've been doing what I do for 30 years, so pretty comfortable in that regard. But, anytime you enter a new space, it's new organizations to get to know, new people to get to know, both internally and externally. My role, of course, I'm involved, handle community relations, all the media relations, so, different media, the conferences, the industry leaders, let alone the actual substance of, the services that we offer and the cases that we represent. And we really handle so many different types of cases within the personal injury and mass tort space. So, it's a lot to absorb, but, try to be quick on my feet, and pretty pleased with what we've done in the last 2 years.
So, people, listeners to the podcast, a lot of them are, in the legal space or in the marketing space, and they see all the different options out there. You walk through the trade show floor of MTMP, and there's all different options. And you guys, both as a law firm that does its own marketing as well as an outside. I remember there was a point when they said, "Oh, we don't want to do our own marketing. It'll upset our referral partners," and that sort of has morphed over the years. But my question is, when you look at the mix of what works, because you see it from your own bottom line of what you're putting money out for, as well as which referral partners are successful in getting cases at scale, what are you seeing driving the needle today? What is the, again, it depends on torts, I get that, but generally, what do you see working best these days as far as aggregating mass torts?
Yeah, so you're right. It's at the Mass Torts Made Perfect conference that we host twice a year in Las Vegas. A couple thousand people attend, and mostly trial attorneys, plaintiff attorneys. But and then there are 100+ vendors that are there, and each having carving out a different niche in the space, and whether it's on the front end, on the marketing side, or the back end, kind of the automation and streamlining of going after medical records, or a lot of the different litigation aspects of handling a case over a long period of time. And so again, for me, the bread and butter of marketing is really always understanding your target audiences, and then identifying what mediums are most successful at reaching those target audiences. And typically, you want a mix. I mean, you want a little bit of everything. And then as time goes by, you adjust that mix, because, to the extent that you can evaluate each and everything you're doing, put a monetary component to that so you can determine ROI. And then initially you place your bets, and then, you adjust those bets and what's working and what's not. So for our firm at Levin Papantonio here, again, 70-year-old, uh, firm with such an incredible reputation. Traditionally, they had kind of handled a lot of their marketing themselves. Definitely used outside firms to help support them, but never had someone like myself come in who had kind of a professional background in doing this for a living. And their instincts are just incredible. I mean, to see what they've done over the years and how they've grown. But there were a lot of things that we wanted to do that, so I call them kind of like, avenues that were not explored. So for example, we were not doing digital marketing ourselves. We were using some other firms to do that. But we now have a mix of, we do our own digital advertising. We use outside firms to help us do digital advertising. And we, for our model also is such that, we work with hundreds and hundreds of co-counsels across the country, and who do their own marketing and then send us their cases, because they, most of these firms are private injury firms in their local markets. And to the extent that they've dabbled or seriously invested in the mass tort space, they typically don't want to manage those cases themselves. They recognize that a firm like Levin Papantonio, who has 35 plus attorneys, many of whom are on the leadership of all these cases as they start to get litigated in the MDLs across the country, we're in a position to really handle and manage a large caseload. They can still participate, but they don't necessarily have to manage those cases themselves. So what we find subsequently is that most of our business on the national level comes from co-counsels who partner with us and bring us those cases directly. So it's a combination of our own advertising that drives traffic to our website, through working with third-party vendors who drive traffic to our website or cases, and then working with these co-counsels across the country.
Very often I find that we learn a lot through our mistakes. Are there any things that either you've tried that haven't worked, or things that you thought would work really well but did okay, but not nearly as well as you thought would?
A lot of, again, in the local markets, right, you would expect, when I moved to Pensacola, I was a bit shocked by, as I came down from the airport, it's a small town, but amazingly beautiful, great history, small town. I mean, I could not believe how many billboards I saw from personal injury attorneys. And so to me, in marketing, you're really trying to differentiate yourself from the competition, right? And not blend in. And so, I looked at all those, I'm like, why do we want to have a billboard? Like, some of your listeners are probably like, I've got 1 million billboards. I spent a lot of money on billboards. To me, it just didn't make sense to be one of literally dozens and dozens of others who had billboards just lined up, after each other. So I got rid of all of our static billboards, I call them, because number one, they fade over time. You can't change it. If you want to, you can change it, but there's a cost associated with it. They get very weathered over time, particularly, the sun in Florida. So now we do have a number of digital billboards, and what I like about those is, within an hour's notice, I can adjust that billboard. I can change the message. We do a lot of events locally, so we can promote local events, local nonprofits that we're supporting. We can do a lot of things with those digital billboards. So I think it adds some flexibility to that. We were doing things like bus reps and bus benches and things like that. So I kind of got moved away from some of the traditional things. We were investing, fairly heavily locally in TV advertising. Again, cutting back a bit on that, and now we're doing streaming, which is something that the firm hadn't done before. So we're streaming on all the channels locally and in the 3 counties. Now, again, this is our local, personal injury marketing, which in advertising, which is different than what we do on a national level. So, but again, I don't, your listeners, could be a bit of both. So that gives you some examples of some of the things that we're doing differently.
Gotcha. Um, what are some of the things sort of that you're excited, like, are there things that you're excited to test that maybe sort of cutting edge out there? What sort of excites you that's coming down the
Yeah,
pike?
I think the streaming offers a lot of opportunity, and it's relatively new for us. So I don't have, hard numbers
Sure,
to
the what?
streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, the streaming I think is very important. The digital on a national level, we weren't really in a position to do the digital marketing ourselves in terms of Google Analytics and social media on a national level. And so, but we're now doing that on top of using some partners too and driving our own traffic to the website. That's been very, very effective for us, and I expect that to grow. So you look at case acquisition costs, significantly less expensive to run our own digital advertising than to use a party partner.
Um, is there, AI is all the buzz. Have you guys at Levin Pap been thinking about creative ways to leverage AI for everything that you're doing?
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. It's not. I'm not on a personal level. I'm not like as crazy about AI as some people are, or as alarmed by it as other people are. I definitely think I know that from a content development, as you know, in your realm, content is king, and you really want to create as much content as possible because the more content you push out, whether that's on social media or organically or paid or pushing it out to the news media. It's the more and more content you have out there is going to increase your search traffic, um, uh, ability for people to find you, right? And so I think what you find with AI is, so for example, if you're trying to write something, AI in almost a blink of an eye can get you 90% of the way to the finish line of what you want to write. Now, obviously, you've got to fact check it and make sure it's accurate and everything else. But compose writing is, in my last job, I had 3 full-time writers, and it's an art in and of itself. And good writing, I mean, so there's speed writing, and then there's good writing, which also requires research, and the research piece can really be the most time-consuming part of it. So it's really remarkable what AI can do in terms of just almost um, getting you 90%, as I said, to the finish line. So I do feel bad about some of these people that's what they do nonstop, because I think it's going to cut into some of these great writers out there. But
No doubt. I think it's very scary in the journalistic side. A lot of jobs that way. As we wrap up, what sort of advice do you give to people? You've now been inside the belly of the beast of
yeah, I mean, I think.
how would you, so sort of as a parting words, how would you frame, from what you've seen, the best way to find yourself into the mass tort space, working with some of the larger players?
Yeah, well, if people want to get involved in the mass tort space, I definitely recommend going to MTMP. But there's just no single better conference
Great.
to be a fly on the wall and listen and learn and meet people and everything else. So, I think you can at a relative. I mean, the thing about mass torts is it's a multi-year investment, right? So these things typically take 3 to 7 years to pay out. If they pay out, they never. There's no guarantees. But historically, most of the big ones have. But so you have to have an appetite. You have to continue to build that pipeline over time. And initially, you're not going to see any type of payback for the first few years. So, but if you have a long-term play, you're thinking like 10 years down the road, and you systematically each year invest X amount, and you start building that pipeline, and then when it starts paying off in the returns, then you have that residual income over a period of time. But I think, so we meet with a lot of co-counsels. A lot of firms come to us like, hey, we do personal injury in our local market. We're getting involved in mass torts. And so we have that conversation with them every day. And, sign a co-counsel agreement with us. We'll help you. We'll give you the insights that we have in terms of how to get in based on your appetite, and how to work with a third-party marketing partner. A lot of these firms don't have in-house marketing to any great extent, so they're reliant on outside firms, and which is fine. I mean, because there's a lot of different agencies out there, a lot of different people that offer a lot of great services that can help support you depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So yeah, so we just try to be a resource for those firms, and I think there's a place for everyone is kind of like the message. If why not? Most firms are pretty successful in their local market on the PI space, but why not take the plunge and get involved in mass torts too? It's just I think a really huge opportunity, and you can do so at a relatively small level.
Well, Mark, thank you so much. I
Of course.
appreciate your time and expertise, and look forward to catching up at the next MTMP.
Okay, sounds good. We'll see you out there.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to the SEO Insider with Seth Price. Be sure to check back next week for fresh insights into building your brand's online presence. Episodes are available to stream directly on BluShark Digital's website.